Greetings, sentient beings. This broadcast is not intended for children. There will be strong language and adult themes.
Not intended for children, I'd better leave. I'm a child at heart.
No, you're just childish.
Ah, well, close enough, although I prefer childlike.
Well, anyway, people are probably aware today is Earth Day. But among the other things observed, this is National Library Week.
No one can go.
Yep, well, and being Wednesday, that makes this National Bookmobile Day. So even though it's supposed to come to you, I don't think that's happening either.
Yeah, besides, I don't read anything in wood pulp form now anyway.
Well, my fiance really loved books, and for her it was very much, the odor and the tactile sense and the whole experience. So she would never go with the electronic format.
Got to admit, I don't understand that, but, well, you do you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, to her, like I say, it was the whole experience, and, books were like teddy bears that she could not go to sleep without having, 5 books on the bed. So there were a couple of her favorites that over the 5 years we were together, there was one in particular I replaced 4 times.
Well, there are definitely some books that I've worn out over the years, but,
Yeah. So let's see who's with us here. We've got Be Mindful, Critical Cripple, and Nerdy Rodent I see in the side chat.
I should probably pull up the side chat. I've not done it yet.
Yeah, I always try to get the pop-out chat going over the StreamYards.
I mean, I usually do. It's just I can't brain this morning.
Yeah, well, you've even gotten the advantage that the morning doesn't get there for 2 hours later than it gets here.
I'm not sure how that's an advantage. I mean, if anything, it means that I'm probably going to be less awake than most people who are where you are.
Yeah. I know, I just making jokes all the time zones.
Yeah. Understood.
Oh.
Yeah. There's some dude with a friggin' leaf blower right outside my window, which is very annoying.
Yeah. I have a big problem with the pretty much any electric motors.
Yeah.
Because there's always such a high-pitched whine. I'm very sensitive to those, any high pitches.
Oh. Does that happen with electric cars too?
I haven't known anyone who's owned an electric car, so I've never been around one enough to know.
Well, because my dad has one, and honestly, it's virtually silent. I mean, you mostly just hear the sound of the tires. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, that sound you hear, that everybody associates with the Prius.
Actually, I don't know that one, but okay.
Well, anyway, the sound is actually artificial. That the motors were so quiet that the manufacturers intentionally made them make noise because they were afraid that pedestrians would not hear them coming.
Oh. Well, usually when you hear something coming, it's loud breathing. I'll just be over here. Yeah, but I don't know. I would have expected something like an electric car to make a sound closer to a dentist drill, but I'm weird like that.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure that's not an association they would want with the product.
Well, no, of course they wouldn't. But
of course, that's one of the areas that I've noted a huge improvement in my lifetime. is with the dentist drills. And, now they've got the pneumatic powered ones that, are extremely quiet. You barely hear them at all.
Mm.
And just like since the 70s, seeing how fast those have evolved.
Well, I barely remember the 70s, so like let's put it this way. At the very end of 1979, I turned 4 years old.
Yep.
Like I saw 16 days of 1979 as a 4-year-old.
Yeah, I've got a bit over a decade on you.
It's always kind of weird, like trying to do the math to figure out, like, how old were you on this date? And I'm like, because, like, I was born in 75, but it was the ass end of 75. So, like, I can't just add 5 to everything and go, that's how old I was.
Yeah. I quite often forget how old I am if I don't go and do the math, but one thing that's kind of hard to forget is that the first man landing on the moon was one day after my 5th birthday.
Wacky fun. That's awesome.
Yeah, so, and that is something that at 5 I was old enough to comprehend what was going on and watched it on TV.
Well, I still remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when the Challenger exploded, which is somehow less triumphant than watching someone land on the moon, but whatever.
Well, I remember the Challenger too, because I was in high school at that point, and I cut class to go home and watch it. Because at the time I was still into those things and, trying to watch every launch. Well, and I really didn't take school too seriously because it was basically fucked up and annoying. So,
Well, I remember exactly what had happened because our 5th grade teacher owed us lunch because she had lost a bet with the class about who was going to win the Super Bowl. And so we're all sitting in the classroom eating lunch and watching the launch, and then shaboom. So, yeah. I remember, like, I was so looking forward to the movie Space Camp, but after the Challenger, it just bombed hard at the box office. And, like, it's not even the movie's fault. It's not a bad movie, but just events got in the way.
Yeah. There's a couple of things like that. There was a movie that virtually nobody's heard of, and I was only aware of it because I had gotten the audiobook called Big Trouble.
Yeah, in Little China?
No, just Big Trouble.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I know the one you're talking about. It had like Demi Moore in it, and I want to say Dan Aykroyd and some pretty fucked up makeup. Or is that Nothing But Trouble?
No, that's a different movie. Yeah. This one was Tim Allen, and it was based on a book by Dave Allen. But it came out in theaters like a couple of months after 9/11. And one of the plot points in the movie had to do with a guy bringing a nuclear bomb on an airplane in a suitcase.
Fun.
So after 9/11, it's like, yeah, that nobody was going to go see that. And I think they pulled it from the theaters.
Oh, definitely not the movie I'm thinking of. Okay. Man, there are a lot of movies with trouble in the name, aren't there?
Yeah, I expect so.
Pretty decent cast, this movie you're talking
hi, Jenny.
about. I mean, I'm looking Tim Allen, Rene Russo, Stanley Tucci, Tom Sizemore. I have no idea who the hell Johnny Knoxville is. Dennis Farina, Janine Garofalo, Patrick Warburton. I mean, shit, this is one hell of a cast. But I've never seen the movie.
I guess I hadn't seen the movie, but I had the audiobook, so I knew the story to it. And I knew the movie was coming out. And it was one that I was figuring I was going to go and see, but
Yeah. I wonder, like, there's got to be movies I meant to see and never got around to. I'm trying to remember if there's any, like, that come to me.
well, these days most of them will. You can, order them on Netflix and they'll come to you. But
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I feel a little spoiled because when I go on to like Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime and I look up a movie I want to see and they're like, oh, yeah, you have to pay extra to see this on top of what you're already paying.
yeah, I always get kind of annoyed by that.
Somebody
Hey, Amiga.
somebody retweeted something I said on Twitter. Basically, I said, I'm staying at home to save my own ass. That it helps save the rest of you is just a side effect.
Yep.
Which I suppose is a little self-centered, maybe a smidge. But at the same time, well, can you fault me for it?
No, hey, at least it's honest. And unfortunately, I feel that we're going to wind up having to do a lot of that because there's too many idiots who aren't going to, be part of the group effort.
Yeah.
And it's like these stupid people going to these protests and, demanding that all the businesses reopen. And it's like, I put a thing up on Twitter last night that, China was in a hurry to get all the businesses reopened, and guess what? The virus is resurging there.
Well, I mean, people are just so dumb. I mean, I don't know what the mental process can possibly be in someone's head where going to the damn beauty salon is more important than their life, the lives of people close to them, and all of that stuff. It's like, I mean, do they really not think the virus is that much of a threat? Really?
Yeah, they don't take it seriously, and it sure as hell doesn't help the way Trump has played it down.
And it's like, I hate to even say this, but it seems like a lot of the folks that like are Trump supporters are in a cult where like he's the glorious leader and anything he says goes no matter what you personally thought. And I've had a lot of Democrats try to treat burners the same way, except we're like, yeah, when Bernie endorsed Biden, we said, well, that was shitty and didn't go along with it because Bernie doesn't rule us. So when Trump is saying, the disease is fine, it's okay, blah, 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 his sycophants believe it like without cause, without examining it. And it's crazy pants.
Actually, Telltale did an analysis of it with the bite model and said that, yes, Trump supporters qualify as a personality cult.
It's just so frustrating. I mean, I don't know. I am very much an advocate of Calexit at this point. I think we need to get out of the United States because it's not working for us anymore. All the blue states need to break away. Let them have their Jesus land.
Yeah, unfortunately, all the blue states aren't continuous. There's a couple of red states in between, so we can't take them all off as one piece.
Well, so we join with Canada.
Minnesota in particular is kind of isolated at this point. It's pretty much surrounded by red states.
Is Minnesota blue?
Minnesota's always been blue.
Really? I would not have pictured that. If someone said to me or asked me, like, what do you think of Minnesota politically? I would have gone, oh, gosh, they've got to be right wing. Aren't they in, like, the Jesus Belt?
No.
No? All right. No. I guess I don't know Minnesota well at all.
No. Actually, when Ronald Reagan had his great sweep across the whole country, Minnesota was the only state he didn't take in the Electoral College.
Crazy.
49
Okay.
states voted for Reagan, but not Minnesota.
Well, I prefer my sodas full-sized anyway.
Okay.
Sorry, every time I hear Minnesota, like a bad soda joke goes through my head. Every time. Can't help it.
Yeah, that goes for a lot of people. No, yeah, I've said a number of times that we already have a New Mexico. We should rename Minnesota to be New Canada.
Yeah.
Just a lot of times, as far as the politics go, Minnesota seems to have more in common with Canada than it does the U.S. And I think things would have been quite a bit different if Senator Paul Wellstone hadn't died in a plane crash during his re-election campaign.
I have never heard that name before in my life until now.
Well, again, things like after 9/11, he was one of the few senators who opposed the Patriot Act, who was actually verbally against it.
Yeah. At this point, 9/11 seems like such a long time ago.
Yeah, it does. But there had also been I think it was like 2001, that we almost had a form of a universal healthcare, a form of a single-payer healthcare program going. But going through the Congress, they put so many amendments and watered it down so badly that it really wasn't worth shit. So Paul Wellstone sunk it by putting a rider on it saying that all members of Congress would be covered under this health plan. It disappeared overnight.
Yeah, I think that members of Congress should have to earn minimum wage.
Yeah, it's not even like they need it because their salary is pretty much incidental compared to the money they get, from their industrial backers, from the lobbyists, and from their speaking engagements.
But I mean, and also, I am in favor of term limits for Congress Muppets.
I see arguments on both sides because, on the occasion that you get a good one, you want to keep them in there. Unfortunately, that's a fairly rare event. Yeah,
well, but also like a lot of the Congress people, they're there for like decades. And then when they finally decide I've had enough, or they get voted out, they end up working for one of the big corporations that they helped prop up while they were in office. And if we limit them term-wise, they don't have a chance to build up that base. Where they don't get to have Wall Street looking at them like, oh yeah, you did us a bunch of favors and now it's our turn to do you favors.
Yeah, but like, for example, how long has Bernie been in?
Oh, quite a while, but obviously he doesn't take that kind of money.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, that if you have term limits, he probably couldn't have been there as long as he has been.
True, but I mean, at the same time, I might be willing to make that sacrifice, frankly.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, that there's trade-offs.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a brighter side, like something to talk about that's not our horrible political system. But right now, I am totally boggled. I got nothing.
Yeah, well, bit of shilling here to do that. Jenny Morgan has been having some troubles, and they cut her Social Security. And her car is down. She lives in a very rural area where she can't get to anything without a car. not even to get groceries or her medicine.
Hmm.
So I'm putting a PayPal link in the side chat there for anyone who has a little extra to donate. The repair estimate for the parts and labor, her car needs a new alternator. So her repair estimate was $413 for anybody who could help out with that.
Well, the community does have a tendency to pull together in times like that when people need stuff. So,
yep.
That's good. Fortunately, that's not the kind of charity I've personally needed. So I haven't had to do that sort of thing. But people have sent me like masks and stuff so I can go to the supermarket.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sloth Girl has been making the mask, and we've sent them out to a number of people in the community now. The great majority of them we've been sending to my sister because she still works at a care facility in the small town we were in. And since it's such a small community, they have not been able to get any because they're like competing against the big cities for the very limited supply, and they have no budget.
Are these masks just masks, or have they been like designed up? Are they custom? Are they pretty?
Oh, well, they're pretty as far as the choice of fabrics and that. They're rather basic design of just the fabric and elastic.
Well,
and she made about 350 of them, but can't get any more elastic.
Yowza. A friend of mine sent me 2 masks that have the Rebel Alliance insignia on them from Star Wars. That's why I asked, because apparently you can make these things pretty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if we had the time to, but she was trying to, crank them out in mass production because they needed a few hundred.
Well, I mean, 350 is definitely impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, she put a lot of work into those. So,
okay.
And of course kept a couple for ourselves. So like, I've got one that's got Marvel superheroes.
I'm seeing an ad right now. It's a billboard for Wilkerson Jewelers. And it says, buy a diamond, receive a free Benelli shotgun, which just seems so incongruous. It's like, okay, I bought a diamond ring and you're giving me a firearm for it. How weird is that?
I saw somebody had posted that on Twitter yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
And I was asking if that was the shotgun wedding package.
Nice. I like that.
But yeah, I guess that's the mentality in some states. Or maybe they're getting around some state law by giving them away instead of selling them.
Maybe. Man, I don't know. I have to admit, I mean, if this virus keeps going on and if we end up in some sort of apocalypse situation, all Mad Max and shit, I almost wish I was armed, but it's not enough for me to go out and actually get a gun.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I don't think it's going to get to that because I think that most people realize they have a lot more to lose than they do to gain. Well, as far as security and that, their chance of actually surviving. And I think that a lot of the people who make noise about it, when it comes down to it, are pretty much cowards.
I mean, I guess, but usually when I think that something isn't going to be that bad, it ends up being more than that bad. So I don't trust my own personal judgment at this point.
Well, I've had that happen a lot politically, but I still think that when it comes to people, not being willing to risk, the basic securities they have, that if they think that there's a reasonable chance that somebody in their family is going to get killed, that completely changes the equation.
I don't know. I mean, like, if you've seen the food lines that stretch around blocks because people can't afford their own food. I mean, the idea of food riots is very possible.
Yeah, and I can see that happening on a small scale, and while it's a horrible thing and, probably affects, a few 100,000 people in this country, that's still a very small percentage of the total population.
I mean, I suppose, but given how people hoarded everything the instant they thought they might have to bunker up, it wouldn't shock me if it grows from like just a few people to everybody, because they will take all the food. And at that point, even the people who can afford food won't have access to it.
Yeah, well, we did run into that. The toilet paper is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
That I even wound up in the situation that, yeah, it was being a concern that if I did not find some within a reasonable time.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to find some, not a lot. I bought, let's see, about, let's call it 12 rolls.
Yeah.
And it's been, what, about a month, and I'm not even halfway through them, so I'm good.
Yeah, well, that's like, here that I've actually wound up, being stocked at like twice the level I ever had been in the past, just because you had to grab it when you could find it.
Yeah.
So we have alias fake name in here. And as far as people in the community helping each other out, well, I wouldn't have been able to make the move without a lot of people donating to my moving fund.
Mm-hmm.
And alias fake name actually drove up here to help us unload the truck.
Nice.
And I'm not sure of his exact location, but I'm suspicious that it was probably a 2 to 3 hour drive each way.
Yows. That's dedication right there.
Yeah, and this was somebody that our entire interaction up to that point had just been that we had been in the side chat together and some things.
Well, I mean...
So yeah, there are some great people out there who are really willing to pitch in and help anybody when they see the need.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's generosity if I've ever heard it.
Yep. Well, and that's I believe in the pay it forward thing. That I've had points in my life. Well, I've actually been homeless for a couple of months twice in my life. So there are people who have helped me out that I've lost contact with, so I can never pay it back to the people who helped me.
Yeah.
So paying it forward is all you can do.
Well, I mean, I donated to your moving fund, and you have paid me back like 3 or 4-fold at this point with some of the stuff you've sent. So, you're doing a great job on that front.
Well, I've been trying to help everybody out where I can.
Yeah.
Generally, financially, I've never been in a great position, and I still don't expect to be. I, get by month to month without much left over.
Well, I have to admit, I'm pretty lucky. My parents made some smart investments, and they're pretty well-to-do at this point. So I have a safety net because my parents do give a shit about me, which is good. So, I don't have too many worries if I end up in trouble somehow. And I have to admit, like, being in that spot of privilege, sometimes I feel a little guilty about it. But then again, I can't, like, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess deny the opportunity to be helped,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I don't want to work against my own self-interest just because I feel guilty about having more than other people.
Well, and there's no reason you should feel guilty about, being in a better position.
Yeah, and of course it wasn't
It's
even my
just
own
when you
doing.
can afford to, you share the wealth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for the first couple of years of my life, my parents and I lived in a log cabin in rural Vermont. The fact that they did a lot better later in life, it's not like I was born with that silver spoon in my mouth, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard you, talk enough about how you grew up in that you seemed kind of surprised to find out that your parents had any amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like they really help me out in my day-to-day life at this point. I still rely on my own personal sources of income. I know that, when they die, I stand to get a decent inheritance, but like at the moment, I'm not counting on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you ever go to Vegas, just assume that the like what couple of $100 you set aside is lost money. You're spending that money, not gambling it. And if you happen to come back with more than you started, that's great. But really, the money you had was the price of admission to play.
Yeah, your chance of finding a lot of money in the street is probably higher than your chance of winning at the casino.
Yeah. Actually, though, you don't necessarily get to keep that stuff. Not that I wanted to. That time I found an iPhone on the ground, like, because the first thing I did was start looking for whoever might have lost it. And I found the guy too. I found whose phone it was because he wasn't too far away, and he'd been looking for it for quite some time. So he was very thankful when I brought it back. And if you find a wallet on the street, well, I would hope that you're the type of person, and I mean that in the royal you, not just you in particular, would be the sort of person who'd try to find who lost it rather than just keep it,
Yeah. Well, actually, we had that. It was like a week after we moved here. I found somebody's wallet in the Walmart parking lot. So we just went into it to check the ID and mailed it back to them. And they sent us back a thank you card. But I also had a thing when I was a teenager that just found a roll of bills in the park with a rubber band. So we did what you were supposed to do and, turned them into the local police. But then after 90 days, nobody had claimed it, so we got to keep it.
Oh, honestly, that wouldn't have even occurred to me to turn it into the police. I probably would have held on to it for like a couple of hours before I realized I'm never finding who this belongs to. I'm going to donate it to charity.
Yep.
That would just be the police never would have been something I'd think of. And I realized that the blind spot on my part, not necessarily a virtue, but still,
Yeah. Yeah, I was just looking at the side chat. Be mindful of saying he broke even once at a casino.
Oh, that's better than most people do.
I've been to a casino maybe a dozen times or so. One time I actually came out with about $200 more than I started with. But I think if you average it out over all of them, I'm sure that I've lost a few $100 total.
I have only been to a casino once and I didn't gamble, and I probably should have, but I don't know. It didn't really appeal that much. Although I wanted to revise that. A friend of mine and I were going to take a road trip to Vegas from San Diego, but he ended up getting clipped by a car. He wasn't very damaged, but he was damaged. And so we had to cancel the trip. And now he's moved to Italy, so we're not going to be doing that. But I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And oh well. It's funny and I've mentioned this on Diana's shows before, but whenever I move to a new place, I inevitably find a friend who sort of fills the role of a big brother. Like he can even be younger than me, but he still fills that sort of role You know, like just the way we interact, it's like I've got a big brother.
Yeah, I know what
And
you mean.
and that was definitely Tom, the guy I was going to do that road trip with. But he's in the Navy, and he got a chance to work with an admiral in Italy, so he took it.
Wonder what he's doing in Italy then.
What do you mean?
Oh, just, if he's in the U.S. Navy, what they've got going on in Italy, that's all. I mean, I know we've got people stationed all over the world, and that just seemed kind of interesting, what kind of job he would have got there.
I think he's like an assistant, like just a personal assistant to the guy.
Ah.
But I'm not sure. I mean, I really don't understand the military very well, so I suppose I should learn. I mean, this is a Navy town, so a lot of the people I know are military.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my brother was in the Navy and stationed out of San Diego.
Yeah. I have sort of walked onto the base, kind of. It was more like the hospital part of the base. And it wasn't that interesting. Basically, we just showed the guy at the gate our IDs, because I was with Tom at the time, and he let us in. And I was looking around going, I love the architecture here, but it otherwise seemed deserted. Like there was no one else there except us. It was weird.
Yeah. When I was 14, when my brother was in the Navy, they did what they called the Tiger Cruise. It was really, an advertising recruiting thing for the Navy. But I got to fly out and meet his ship at Pearl Harbor and sail back to San Diego.
I know I would be terrible in the military. I just don't have that mindset. I'm too much of a wise ass, if nothing else.
Yeah.
But I understand you can ask for non-combat jobs, and you're likely to get them. So if I was ever to join the military, I'd probably be like an administrative assistant or something. Because honestly, I don't ever want to be responsible for someone else's death, except possibly Shatner. So, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, even when they had the draft, there was the option of registering as a conscientious observer, which was a concession the military had to make to certain religious groups.
Well, my dad, being the hippie that he was a conscientious objector, and they let him not be in the military that way. So, but I'd never heard of a conscientious observer. That's a new one to me.
Or conscientious objector. I guess I'm using the wrong term there, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'd be the same kind of thing.
Well, the way it sounded from your description, it sounded like, yeah, we'll let you in the military, but you're gonna be way back behind the lines and all that, like pretty far away from the front.
No, a lot of times they do wind up, moving around with the active units, even in the combat zones. But they would have them do, like things like you were saying, that they wouldn't give them a weapon, but they could make them supply officers and things like that.
Right. Maybe put them in like the medical units or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would never make it through basic training because I'm not good with taking orders.
Yeah, that would be my problem too.
If you tell me why something needs to be done, I'll be reasonable about it. But if you just tell me to do it and won't explain why, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And that kind of attitude would not get you very far in the military.
And I would have such a hard time. Like if a commanding officer, sergeant, whatever, made a really like pun-worthy statement about something, I'm not sure I could hold back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I couldn't make it in the military. I was curious at one time because obviously I was not around for Vietnam. I was curious how they chose who got drafted. And so I looked it up, and I actually found footage of them doing what looked like the lottery, where they had that little glass chamber that was moving all these balls around with air, and they would actually like pluck one out and say, okay, if your birth date was on this day, you're drafted. It was crazy.
Yeah, well, and that was actually how they did it even in the early days of World War II, before everything got to the point of grabbing everyone they could, was that it was done a similar kind of thing that, is pretty much the same as calling bingo numbers.
Man, that's wild to me. I just like, because I had actually always wondered ever since I heard that there was a draft, and like finding out that it was that simplistic, finding out that it was that, I don't know. I didn't even know that they just drew dates. I thought somehow they drew actual names, which I realize is deeply impractical, but well, I mean, what did I know?
Yeah, well, no, again, if you don't think about it, even if you've seen the footage, thinking they're drawing names seemed to be a reasonable assumption, until you start thinking about, how many thousands of men they have to call up at one time.
Mm-hmm. So I remember reading this story, and for all I know, it's based on true events in a book about Callahan's Crosstime Saloon, which is kind of funny. I mean, it is sci-fi, but whatever. Where this one guy is telling his experience from being like drafted for Vietnam, and he was talking about a friend of his who was in the training with him, and then on the day that they were issued their rifles. Like the drill sergeant would throw the rifle almost as hard as he could at people's chests, and they'd have to catch it, and this friend like just sidestepped it and let the rifle go past him. And he goes, I'm not touching that, Sergeant. That kills people and I won't do it. And they took him away and never saw him again. No idea what happened to him. And I don't know if that ever happened in real life, but if I were in that position, I would have been tempted to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how to shoot a gun. I've, especially handled hunting rifles and that, and like shot tin cans off a log, but I really, unless it was a survival thing, I can't see ever shooting a living animal, let alone a person.
Yeah.
I mean, I got horribly broken up when I accidentally hit a rabbit with a lawnmower.
How does that even happen? I mean, like,
because it was really high grass and they were hiding in the grass, and the way rabbits are, they hide until whatever threat it is like a foot away from them, and then they bolt.
And the rabbit didn't see it coming?
Well, no, it's actually a common tactic for them is that on their initial bolt, they will actually go toward a predator and then, zigzag back. Because it tends to confuse predators, like dogs and such.
Well, okay, I don't know if this is actually a thing, but I vaguely remember like reading Watership Down a long ass time ago, and apparently rabbits did what in the book was called going tharn, where like they'd freeze up and like be unable to do anything, let alone run.
Yeah, well, that's, what they generally do is they do freeze in place like that. And like I say, they'll stay like that until the predator's like a foot away. Because a lot of times if they freeze in place and they don't move, if the wind isn't carrying their scent towards them, the predators will walk by them.
Sounds kind of possum-y.
Yeah, I'm sure, similar mechanism evolved.
Yeah. I don't know why I remember that tiny bit of Watership Down trivia, but it's stuck in my head, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those books that I know I read sometime when I was in grade school, but I don't really remember any of it.
I could probably go the rest of my life and die happy, never again seeing the movie.
I tried to watch the movie, and I don't think I was able to even get through it.
Oh, you know how they're doing like live action remakes of animated movies? They're apparently doing that with Watership Down. And I'm like, that is not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I think if I actually had to kill the animals myself, I probably would wind up being vegetarian.
Mm.
And I know enough about the forest that at least in the decent weather, I could probably gather enough to find what I need. Getting through the winters would be a different matter.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm no gardener.
Yeah, I've never had a lot of success with growing plants. It's something my father was real good at, but we were never very close, so I didn't really learn a lot from him.
I don't know. I mean, I have a horrible feeling that if we really got into some sort of like post-apocalypse Mad Max situation, there's a very good chance that I would turn mildly feral and start killing people for their food. I mean, as much as I say I would be a conscientious objector in war, if I'm that hungry, there's a good chance that will all get abandoned. I hate to say it, like I'm not proud of that.
Well,
But
yeah, I know if it came down to survival, it would be a whole different set of evaluations. So,
yeah. I don't know. I guess what it comes down to is I reach, oh, fuck it, really easily.
yeah. Well, like I said, I've been at the point financially of, not having enough money even to pay for having a roof over my head. So, I've gotten used to having to scrounge for things.
Hmm.
Which in our society, if you get in the mindset for it, our society is so wasteful that there's a lot of stuff out there you can pick up without really bothering anyone. Not that I'd want to rely on doing that on a long-term basis, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've never been homeless, but I have had to live on about $400 a month, 200 of which went to rent, not to mention electricity bills. And I was living in a tiny, tiny, tiny studio apartment. And yeah, so, well, it's not exactly the same, obviously, but it made me rather frugal. It made me consider every purchase I ever make, up to and including just groceries. Like I agonize over the cereal aisle, going, I know I love Crispix, but it's the most expensive cereal in the aisle. I'm gonna go with the $2 brand flakes, even though they're nasty. And I have a decent amount of money right now. I really do. But I mean, I still, because of that time when I was living on so little, I still look at the prices of everything and make decisions on the basis of what's cheapest.
yeah, I'm still in the habit of doing a lot of that. It's difficult for me to ever, spend money on myself for anything because most of my life I've been in a situation that I'm taking care of kids or, in one form or another, taking care of someone else who can't quite handle things on their own.
Well, it's amazing how much easier it is to live financially when you're not taking care of children. I mean, children are expensive.
Yep.
So, yeah. I don't envy parents in any way. Now I know they say, "Oh, but it's the most rewarding experience. Children are a blessing." Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, maybe, but they're way more responsibility than I want. I mean, taking care of 2 cats is plenty. And I don't have to change diapers. I just empty pans.
Yep.
So, if you're a parent and you love it, more power to you. But, don't try to make me feel guilty for not having kids.
Well, it was certainly rewarding in a lot of ways, but also very stressful.
Yeah. I don't know. How old are the kids that you had now? Are there any left, or are they all grown up?
The youngest 2 are in college now.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I don't hear from most of them, but 2 of them I'm, connected with through Facebook, and I get regular updates that way.
There you go. Yeah, my parents are on Facebook and we friended each other, and now I sometimes feel the need to self-censor a little because there's stuff I have been known to say that honestly, if my parents heard me say them, they'd be like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? We didn't raise you like that." Well, actually, no, I take that back. My parents aren't the sort to say that, but they might be thinking it.
Mm.
So, it's having that kind of communication is both good and bad,
I handled kids pretty much the same way I handled my family, of, being open enough about it that they would be scared to ask questions because it would be more information than they wanted.
I'm trying to remember which author it was. I think it might have been Stephen Bruce, where in his bio on his books, he would describe the way he'd say, "My parents raised children, goats, and plants, and they took care of the plants by a system they called benevolent neglect, and they also raised me that way too, and insisted it worked on the plants." And I'm like, benevolent neglect. I like that term.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about me is I grew up in a house where there were always at least a dozen people. I was the youngest of 9, and we had 5 foster kids over the years.
Yikes.
And yet with all the people in the house, I really grew up very largely neglected. And I think it was the idea that everyone always thought someone else was watching me, so no one was actually paying attention.
Well, I hope you exploited that situation to your advantage.
Well, since I grew up that way, it was the only thing I knew, so I just, kind of dealt with it. But yeah, it's like when I look back at it and look back at, just all the shit that I had going on as a kid that nobody seemed to notice.
Well, but at the same time, it sounds like you could get away with a lot, is my point. Is like, well, are you watching him? I thought you were watching him. Where the hell is he? What is he doing? And, you're off causing trouble. At least that's the way I would have done it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were always a lot of people around, so I couldn't do anything to avert. But yeah, it's part of why things were really pretty screwed up for me, and why it really took me until I was in my 20s to develop any real sense of ethics. Because in that environment, there was no direct connection between my actions and consequences. I got blamed for shit that I had no idea what was going on, and I got away with a lot of shit that I did and someone else got blamed for. So I didn't really grow up with any concept of being punished for my actions.
I see. Yeah, I can see how that might screw a person up a little.
So it really wasn't until I was like 22, 23 and living on my own that I realized that, I've got to be responsible for my own actions now.
Well, yeah. I don't know. It's hard to empathize with that because I was told, hey, you're not allowed to do that a lot as a kid. So, yeah. I have to say, like, there were never more than 5 people living in my home at once, and 2 of those were cats. So, it was mostly just me and my parents, and I have often envied people with siblings. I mean, I realize that siblings can be a pain in the ass, but at the same time, I don't know. Growing up as an only child kind of sucks in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we always had 3 cats. And I've actually said a number of times that I think I was raised more by the cats than I was by other people. Because they're the only ones who were actually paying attention to what I was doing, it seemed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of why I really couldn't, live anywhere without having some animals in the house. There was one point for about 6 months, after my ex pushed me out, that, because I didn't have a stable living situation, that was the only time in my life I didn't have, cats and dogs living with me. And psychologically, that was really difficult on me.
Wait a minute. Cats and dogs living together sounds like mass hysteria.
Well, it depends.
Not hoping you got the reference.
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of depends. Like back in the 90s, we had 2 cats in the house when we got a puppy. So the dog wound up thinking she was a cat. I used to say we just had a 60-pound cat that barked at the mailman. And she also never seemed to get the concept that she had grown larger than the cats. Because she would chase one of the cats under the coffee table and get stuck at her shoulders. And then just look at me with this bewildered look like, Cloudy did it?
Yeah, I've seen dogs that grew up to be gigantic who assumed that they were still lap puppies. I mean, pictures of them. I'm actually quite terrified of dogs. So, yeah.
Like I say, just in every aspect, she seemed to behave like the cats.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, she would try to climb up in my lap while I was sitting at the computer and, not seem to quite get the concept that my lap wasn't big enough to hold her anymore.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm really glad I got Xander right before the whole self-quarantine, social distancing thing happened. Because, I mean, granted, I already had Columbia, but if I had to do this whole quarantine thing alone, I'd have gone absolutely bug fuck by now.
Yeah. Well, that's, I've never had a wide circle of friends anyway, and, with the move and all. So having Sloth Girl, that we've got apartments in the same building, she's just upstairs, but this is a pretty big building. So it's like going from my apartment to hers would be like the equivalent of walking 2 blocks in the small town we were in. Just because where the elevators are, there's kind of like I've got to walk from my apartment half the length of the building to the elevator and then go back the other way when I get upstairs.
And elevators. I haven't lived in a building with an elevator in quite some time.
Well, it's only a 3-story building, so it really wouldn't need it except for the fact that it's, to be handicap accessible.
Right. I mean, the place I'm currently living is 2 stories and there's only stairs. So, and of course, everyone's front door opens out onto not the street so much. There's sort of an inner courtyard here, but still, it's not like were in hallways where an elevator could even go if people insisted on one. So unless you have a ground floor apartment, this place is not handicapped accessible.
Yeah, this is a fairly newer building. I'm not sure. It was probably built in like the mid to late 80s. So they were already, building codes here were already thinking about those kind of things.
Mm. I don't know. Even if there were building codes, I don't think anyone could reasonably change this place to be, accessible like that.
Well, and that's, older buildings were grandfathered in because some of them, it wasn't practical to update them.
I don't know how old this building is. I wonder if there's a way to find that out. Some like easy way to find it out. Hop onto a website, give the address, and see how old the building is.
You might be able to do that. The city planning office, would have records of when the building permits were issued and things like that. So I'm not sure if you'd be able to look those up online or if you'd have to go down there, actually. You might have to go down there just because they would be things that, were paper records before the internet was a thing, and they probably haven't bothered to scan and digitize them all.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, hell, for all I know, this building's fairly new. I don't know.
Yeah, Robert, I do have a lot of friends in the online community now. But yeah, it's, as far as people that I've actually met in the flesh, not too many. Although that was a big thing with getting back to Minnesota, is there are a couple of hobby groups here, including a couple I helped start, that if it wasn't for the lockdown would be considered within driving distance, at least within an hour and a half of where I am now.
I've looked on one website so far. Believe it or not, it was Bob Vila's website about how to determine the age of a building. And most of it was stuff you can only find out by leaving and going to, like you say, the surveyor's office or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
So, and there's another one that I'm looking at where they say, look at your wiring, look at your electrical receptacles, this, that, and the other thing. Look at structural panels. And I guess that's one way to figure it out. But
yeah, that's pretty much what I'm going by here, especially the electrical, just because, that's my work, has been doing home repairs. So just being familiar with the building codes and, approximately what year they required certain updates to the electrical and plumbing codes, I can usually guess it within, 5 to 10 years at least.
Oh, crikey. I'm looking at a website here to figure out how old your house is by answering a bunch of questions, but it's British. It's in the UK. And so it's like a lot of the terminology is stuff we just don't say here, like flat. Like we don't have flats in the United States. And I don't know what the hell a converted flat and a purpose-built flat is. I just know I don't have a house or a bungalow. Oh, where is the property? Scotland, Wales, London, Southeast, Southwest, Northern, Midlands, North Ireland. Yeah, this is not going to help me. Let's see what happens if I change the URL.
Yeah, Mika has a point that if you can open up a wall, you can tell a lot by the stud framing, but I don't think that's something most people can do.
Yeah, the level to which I know jack shit about carpentry, I have no idea any of that stuff. I barely even know what sheetrock is.
Yeah.
Ugh. Seems like every database that can tell you how old your house is British. Like look up the age of your house on this UK site. Gee, thanks.
Yeah, I've never actually tried to do that online. I was used to the more arcane methods of, like I say, either going down to the city planning office or going to the public library to find the stuff. And just because I grew up with that kind of thing, so a lot of times it still doesn't occur to me to try doing things online. I'm still used to doing it the old-fashioned way.
Well, here we go. Howoldismyhouse.com. Apparently that exists. Although one of the quick links here is how to date your house. I'm not attracted to houses.
Yeah, there's a word for that, and I unfortunately have seen some weird things on TV of people who wanted to marry their car, or there was some weird thing on Discovery Channel about that, and like this one lady wanted to marry a bridge.
Crazy. I mean, I was just joking. I didn't realize that was really a thing, although I suppose I shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it's apparently not just a fetish, but it is actually a psychological condition.
Do I even want to know how
No, I don't think we want to go into it any further than that.
Yeah, I'm picturing. I don't want to know. I don't want to say what I'm picturing because it's the kind of thing that gets you a strike on YouTube. But
yeah, well, I know the direction you're going, and I did once read an article about a guy who got arrested for getting it on with his car in the street, but
okay, marital relations. That's what I'm trying to say. How one has marital relations with a house.
Yeah, not something I've really studied. It was just something I've run across, and and that's I've been part of the kink community, so I've been exposed to a lot more of that than most people have. But yeah, there is a point to taking things too far.
Yeah, I
Yeah, but Robert, can you be sure the house ever consented?
Right. Well, I would say that you have the key to its heart. Oh man, that reminds me. There was a movie quite some time ago, one of those all CG movies called Monster House, where a house was possessed and came alive. And
yeah, I saw that one.
Like at one point, one of the kids goes, like I forget if it was a male house or a female house, but they said like, ooh, so it's a boy house, or ooh, it's a girl house, because they found something inside the house that seemed vaguely genitally.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I remember the movie not being that good.
Yeah. It was one of those that at the time, the graphics were good for the time, but the story really wasn't very good.
Well, I mean, the story was, meh. I don't even care about the visuals as much.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I feel too, that I can overlook a lot of things as far as the visuals and that, if it's got a good script.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of visually stunning movies that still kind of suck, like in terms of story.
Well, yeah, there's no end to those movies that, whoever was putting them together decided that if they spent enough on CGI that they didn't really have to have a script. Yeah, especially in the science fiction and the horror genres. B, you built your own house? Hey, Dora. It's actually just past lunchtime here. Oh. So what are you humming about? You find something interesting?
Well, I was exploring my discovery queue on Steam, and there was a program there called I Can't Believe It's Not Music that apparently randomly generates MIDI files for you, but unfortunately the instruments are not very good. There's another, there's an actual website that does it much better.
Ah.
I was tempted, sorely tempted, because it's like $3, but the music does not sound good, so... But there are some really good procedurally generated, AI generated music out there that you can just use, and I mean, I really like it. So
I've heard about some of those.
They have one where they compose like almost movie style music, and it sounds, no joke, like an actual orchestra played it. So it's really cool.
B, I thought I was sub to you. But if you've got videos of your house building, I don't recall seeing any of that. And unfortunately, YouTube in their recent update within the last month has taken away that very handy feature that you used to be in the side chat. You used to be able to click next to the person's name, and the 3 dots had an option to go to their channel. But they took that away.
Why do they feel the need to correct things that aren't broken? Because they keep doing that. Or they make things extra complicated in ways that you just, like, it doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the YouTube studio thing for uploading videos. You know, it's like the old one worked. I don't get what the point of the new one was.
And it's slower. Like you know, you load up the My Videos page, and it just crawls when it loads up the videos.
Yep.
And I'm like, why? Because the old version would just, bam, there's your videos.
Well, me, and it probably has to do with, you know, how slow my computer and the connection I was on were. But even with the old version, it would, you know, take quite a long time even to upload a video, and all mine were only like 6 or 7 minute videos.
Okay, I just found a video game called Coughing Simulator 2020. And it says, do you want to cough but are scared of people looking at you weirdly, even running away from you? Are you scared of infecting people with COVID-19 by coughing on them? Use this game to cough in the safety of your own home. Now, how fucked up is that?
Really? Yeah, I've had to get a lot better at suppressing my cough, just because for me it's just part of my normal allergies. And, you know, these days everybody panics if you cough in public.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, what if I just have a slightly sore throat? Well, what if I inhaled a bit of dust? Are you going to freak out because I coughed?
That's one of the things that's been worrying me about this situation, and I've had to be taking my temperature every day because having a fever is about the only one of the symptoms of the COVID that I you know, don't normally have, just as part of my allergies.
Right.
That, you know, having coughing and screwed up sinuses and a runny nose are just things that are triggered for me from things blowing around in the wind.
I can't remember the last time I haven't woken up with a stuffy nose. And also I don't trust taking my temperature because I don't run at 98.6. I usually run closer to 96 or 97. And so if I start taking my temperature and it's 98, I'm like, do I have a fever or not?
Well, and that's one of the things, just health in general is you have to know what's normal for your body. Because the numbers that they'll give you will be averages that nobody, everybody will have some variation on that.
Yeah.
My fever my normal temperature tends to run kind of low. So like if the temperature's reading 99, for me, that's a fever.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying too. And so like if I take the temperature, I don't know what to expect.
Well, then you should take it, when you're feeling better.
Oh, well, I have.
Just so you've got a normal baseline, and that's what you've got to compare to, is what your normal baseline is.
Well, but that's the thing, is like I've tried that, and even so, I'm not sure whether to trust it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what Dave's saying in the side. Take your temperature every day for a week and use that for a baseline. Just average out what it is every day over a week.
Yeah. But I mean, there have been times when I felt quite decidedly ill, took my temperature, and it was the same as it usually is. And I'm like, well, okay, now what? So I don't know. Like, it'd be nice if this was one way in which I was normal.
Well, the integration isn't perfect, so I expect this body to be a bit off. I had to do a body swap to be able to live here, so.
Okay, rewind. I didn't catch that. What?
Well, I'm actually an exchange student from Alpha Proxima Major. I'm just here doing my thesis work on primitive cultures. And when I'm done, I'll just be beamed back to my home world, and we'll swap bodies back again.
Sounds like a really horrible version of Avatar. I actually just rewatched.
I think something like that. I hadn't really thought of it in most terms.
I just rewatched Avatar, and I don't know what it is, but I got it better this time. Like, it's not that I didn't understand it last time. I just sort of empathized a little bit better, I guess. And I wonder if Jimbo Cameron's ever going to get around to making those sequels he's been talking about. Because, I mean, he said he wants to have, 5 or 6 movies total. And I'm like, are you even going to get to that before you're too elderly to make another movie? But even so, number 2 hasn't even, I'm not even sure it's in pre-production. So should we ever expect to get another Avatar movie?
Well, he may not have been able to convince anyone he's got enough of a story to tell to get anyone to fund it.
I guess, but I mean, I seem to recall Avatar making a friggin' bundle, so I mean, you'd think someone somewhere would throw money at it. According to this, Avatar 2 is supposed to come out next year in 2021, but well, it's been cast quite a bit. Wait a minute, how the hell is Sigourney Weaver going to be in this thing? Her character died.
Well, yeah, again, that kind of indicates there's already a plot hole they've got to work on.
Well, I mean, okay, granted, she could still, I suppose, because, she was absorbed into Awa, and so I guess there might be some way to get her back out again and get her a body. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, it says right here, Avatar 2 and 3 are both filming, although I would imagine not so much anymore with the whole social distancing thing. I mean, I'm just saying, is how many movies and TV shows are put on hold at the moment? I understand that Saturday Night Live did it through like podcast format online or something instead of actually being on stage. And I guess that's one way to do it, but with a big like production, the way that something like Avatar has to be, I don't think it's possible to social distance and still film.
No, not something where where you need a full film crew that you'd have 100 people on the set. There isn't really any way they could do that.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to the movie industry at this point.
Like most other industries, I think basically everything's going to have to be put on hold for somewhere from a few months to a year.
Well, but I mean, a lot of businesses have already been killed because of that. Now, granted, Hollywood has enough money to not, but still.
Well, yeah, and unfortunately, yeah, it could wind up costing a lot of people their careers. Because even if the company itself manages through it, the individual people, if they're not working, and I'm sure that a lot of companies are going to wind up, using this as they've got an excuse now to lay people off, and probably if they decide they need to save some money, won't bring everyone back.
And I mean, it's probably at the point now where they say, you can't make multiple millions to act in this movie right now because no one's going to put their butt on the seat. Although I have seen a thing now where I think it's through Amazon, I'm not sure, where you can basically buy tickets at movie theater prices and stream the movie at home. Like, apparently that's a thing.
Yeah, well, there have been some movies that were like supposed to be released in the theater this month that I know have been going up on services like that.
And there's a couple of movies coming out that I actually really want to see, and if they offer that service, then I guess I want it. I like if those movies come out on that, like the new Top Gun movie that's coming out. I mean, I don't have high hopes for it, but with that in mind, I'm unlikely to be disappointed then. And there's some Ryan Reynolds movie coming out where it turns out he is an NPC in an online game that's about to be shut down. And he discovers this and is like, yeah, let's do something about that. And it looks hilarious, like they have those Grand Theft Auto type things where pedestrians are just constantly mowed down by machine gun fire or like cars and stuff. And he just sits there taking it in stride as if that's just another day.
Yep.
I don't know. It looks like an entertaining movie to me. I really want to see it, but at this point, unless they stream it, I'm not going to get to.
Yeah, well, the movie theaters are certainly something that's hurting a lot, but
what can you do?
Yeah. Well, I have seen things that, in some areas where they've got the theaters open, it's like restrictions that they can only like sell every third seat so that people leave space between them.
I was thinking about that, yeah. But even so, I mean, the air in the theater, unless they're sterilizing every seat after every show, I mean...
Well, yeah, I don't think that's a practical solution. I think it's kind of silly that they're doing that at all, but...
And I wouldn't really want to wear a mask through, like, a 2-hour movie, either.
Oh, yeah, no, I couldn't bear wearing one that long. It's like when I go out, I get the break because I can take it off when I'm in the car, but... Yeah, I can't see keeping it on for a couple hours.
Yeah. I mean, hell, there's... I don't know if it's just my nose is shaped funky or what, but the masks put so much pressure on the bridge of my nose that I'm like, I don't want to keep doing this. Like, a trip to the supermarket is plenty before it starts to really hurt.
Yeah, for me, the main problem is just that it tends to steam up my glasses.
Yeah. I used to wear glasses for a long, long time, and then contacts, and then LASIK. But I know exactly what you're talking about with glasses fogging up when bits of your face are like obscured or whatever. Yeah, I know that way too well.
Yeah, well, it's a problem I have a lot working with power tools and that, because, a lot of times I should be wearing a dust mask, but it's not safe if I can't see clearly. So I wind up breathing in a lot of crap that I shouldn't be, but, you got to kind of pick what's going to be. Breathing the stuff in I know isn't good for me, but if the alternative is cutting off a finger, that's not real healthy either.
Yeah. I could probably go the rest of my life and die happy, never cutting off any of my extremities.
Well, I had my first really serious accident in that regard.
Yeah?
About a year before I moved away from New York.
Okay.
Well, 3 of my fingers I'm missing above the top knuckle.
Why?
Because I got them caught in a radial arm saw. And it's like I had owned that saw for like over 20 years. And that was literally the first time I ever had all the guards and guides on it.
Mm-hmm.
And even the doctor at the emergency room said that if I had the blade guard on, my hand probably would have been deflected off it. But instead, my hand got trapped between the guard and the blade.
Oof. Yeah, I'm sorry I asked. I don't ever want to do. Right now, I'm. Yeah, when you get those sort of sympathy twinges when you hear about something horrible happening.
Okay, well, be nice. Otherwise, I'll start putting up pictures.
Oh, I don't have to look at your pictures.
No, I would never actually do that. That it
sure
is something that, for my own reference, when it happened, I couldn't look at it myself. So it's like kind of looking the other way. I took a couple of snaps with my cell phone, like 2 days after when I was changing the bandages.
Ugh, yeah.
Just because, I had the morbid curiosity. I had to see it, but I couldn't actually look at it. So I took the picture so I didn't have to look at it for a few weeks until things were healing properly.
Yeah, that's unpleasant. Oh, weird.
Oh, that's cool, Dora.
Someone did do something I was wondering about. They made a VR version of Angry Birds.
Okay. I never even played the original, but certainly it's one of those franchises that you couldn't help but be aware of. It was all over the place for a few years.
Yeah, I never actually played more than a couple of seconds of it on someone else's phone, but I'm kind of irritated that you can't get a PC version of it. I mean, I almost want to play it, but
I thought there had been PC versions of it. Maybe just knockoffs.
Or maybe that's just not on Steam. Let's see. Oh, well, no, wait. That's the Microsoft Store. Which leads me to believe... Okay. It looks like they have something. I've been looking for new games to play because, honestly, I've gone through just about my entire library at this point. But it looks like you can download it on PC.
Yeah, well, that's what Dave's saying in the side chat, that he's played it on the PC.
Oh, but when I try to download it, it's all on like the Google Play Store.
Yep.
Which means that I'm pretty sure you can only get it on your phone.
I'm not sure.
For my phone, it looks like you can't actually play it on PC.
Yeah. For
I
my
mean,
budget, I tend to have to look for the free programs, so I
there's
generally
some,
don't. I generally don't bother with Google Play because it's always trying to rope you into paying for something.
well, it does seem like, oh yeah, it
Okay.
looks like you can
Yeah,
play
Dave
it in
says
the
Google
browser.
Play covers apps that run in Chrome.
Oh, if you go to chrome.angrybirds.com, apparently, yeah,
Dave says he could send you a copy.
I would like that. Um, well, you know how to find me on Twitter, so Angry Birds Transformers, really? Oh,
Yeah, they did crossovers with all sorts of things.
it's kind of like any sci-fi franchise out there has its own version of Monopoly.
Well, yeah, they've got versions of Monopoly for virtually everything now.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, well, I mean, not just sci-fi things. It
Well,
just,
yeah, but
yeah.
still. I mean, I actually have a copy of Star Wars Monopoly. Someone gave it to me as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
I want single player versions of board games. I know they exist. Lots of them are out there, like single player board games. They're also like super expensive, though. I'm tempted to get them anyway. I mean, like $50 for a board game now.
Yeah, well, $40 to $50 is pretty much the standard price for most board games these days.
Yeah.
Especially if they've got any kind of franchise licensing involved with them. That
Um,
always like adds another $10 to the price.
I'm looking at the Firefly board game that apparently has a like a single player mode.
Oh, hey, Spooky. Yeah,
Wow.
Spooky says there's an Angry Birds Star Wars. I know I've seen that. I've seen the Angry Birds with the Vader helmet.
Let's see. There's I'm looking here. Prime delivery Thursday, April 30th. So I'm like, I mean, I guess I hate waiting. Waiting sucks. I wonder, maybe I should try buying this shit not on Amazon. Yeah, Amazon has made it way too convenient, and I'm sick of supporting them, but, well,
Yeah. Well, that's their thing, is just kind of being the one-stop shopping, so you don't have to go looking up a dozen different sites to compare prices on something.
mm-hmm. Well, I'm seeing a couple of sites where you can get it for $34.
Yeah. I do a lot of stuff through eBay. I've actually started to wonder, what the requirements are to have a shop on Amazon.
Hmm.
Somehow I've got a feeling that there'd be a lot of pressure as far as, they're wanting you to get everything shipped out and everything.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, just from everything I've read about the way they drive the people who work in their warehouses, it just sounds like it's not really a company I'd want to work with.
Well, I have actually worked for Amazon in their warehouse. And I mean, it was interesting, definitely an interesting experience, but I would never want to do it again.
Well,
I
I
mean, they
saw a
gave
thing recently, and like they were interviewing some of the employees in a warehouse and that, and just it seems like their expectations for like how many orders or how much time the employees have to fill each order is often unrealistic. Just because, for them to go from one aisle in the warehouse to another aisle in the warehouse, to collect up the different things from one order, they just don't give them enough time to physically walk that distance.
Well, they must have changed things because it was a lot easier when I was working in their warehouse.
Yeah, well, it's, they've been pushing more and more to have everything, for next day shipping and that. So I think they've really, been cranking up on their expectations of the employees with that.
Yeah, you probably have a point there. But they would give you these really cool wrist computers that look like a Pip-Boy from Fallout. And that was neat.
Well, yeah.
But
I can see that, you'd get dazzled with the fun tech. So
yeah. But also apparently, walking around that much really made my feet hurt. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad I wasn't one of those poor fuckers on the boxing line, because all they did was conveyor belt all freaking day, whereas I got to see all these really cool products and use the wrist computer and all this stuff. So
yeah, be mindful saying that in some of the warehouses, they have robots that pick the stuff and bring it to the employees. And I know that does vary, and it is something that Amazon is, working to get things more automated, just because employees are relatively expensive compared to the robots.
yeah. I actually managed to change someone's mind about using the self-checkout at the supermarket, because they were like, oh, this will kill so many jobs. And I'm like, actually, it will create a bunch of jobs too, because someone has to program these things, someone has to manufacture these things, someone has to install them and perform maintenance on them, and this, that, and the other thing. And they're like, I never thought of that. Now, granted, it does probably kill a bunch of working class jobs rather than tech field jobs, but even so, like they're not complete and utter job killers.
Well, but it probably reduces the number of people involved, just because especially things like the programming and that, like they only have to write the program once and they can install it in thousands of machines.
Oh, that is so not true. Because they will be always like updating and bug fixing and all of that stuff.
Well, no, I know that, but still, I think, when you consider the number of those checkouts they put into how many stores, as opposed to having cashiers stand at every checkout.
But I mean, during those install processes and the maintenance processes, it's like there's gonna be a ton of people still working even after they're installed.
Well, and it's a constant thing that our society's, always dealt with, that, automation tends to get rid of some of the lower skilled jobs and create some new higher skilled jobs.
Yeah. Oh. Well, but I mean, they're like pointing that out to someone, though. They were like, oh, never thought of that.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're like, okay, I don't feel so bad about using the self-checkout now. And I was like, well, hey.
Yeah. And there is still kind of the problem, just as far as, people who can't afford to get that kind of training and the jobs that are available to them. But I think it's not as big a problem as people make it out to be.
I mean, to be fair, there have been times when I've worked in the tech field, but I didn't actually like get the education one might consider necessary.
Mhm.
Like I was working in developer support artwork side in video games for a while, and that was interesting, but my experience making games had all been sort of on my own time rather than going to school for it. I mean, I dropped out of school to take that job because I was like, well, they want me now. So, yeah. And then from that experience, I ended up actually getting into making games.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually went to a technical institute for computer programming and operations back in the early 80s. So everything I learned on that is so outdated now as to be completely useless. But, I was doing that for a while, and I went back to doing the home repair stuff just because I found the computer operations to be excruciatingly boring.
Well, yeah, I've never been a good programmer. I cut my teeth on BASIC, then moved to Pascal, never did learn C. And I
Yeah,
was never very good at it, but partly that was because my teachers were terrible. They never really taught me how to build an engine. So a lot of what I was doing was this like brute force stuff that was bad programming. Like I look back on it now and go, wow, I was an idiot. So I mean, I'd love to go back in time now with what I know now and restart that education because I might have ended up a decent programmer if I'd known what the hell I was doing.
yeah, I kind of feel the same way that if I had been more targeted about it and gotten more into the actual programming, then it might have been something I could have stuck with. But I never, I didn't get far enough to get into the interesting stuff. So I was wind up, doing business applications, things that were more along the lines of glorified spreadsheets and that.
Yeah. Well, that and they never taught me how to integrate graphics into what I was doing. Because like every character I would make would have that black box around it. Like I didn't know how to make alpha masks. And like my teacher really didn't know either. So, I just like that was part of it because I wanted to make games and couldn't because like the graphics were so shite and I wasn't using an art program to make the graphics. I actually had to use the program itself to draw the graphics and then capture them to be used. It's like my teachers were just really bad helping me achieve my goals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have wondered, even when I was in the technical institute, that some of the teachers there just didn't really seem to know how to teach. They might have known how to do it themselves.
Mm.
Well, that's something I've reflected on a lot myself, is that there's a lot of skills I have that I can do, but I'm not a good teacher. Actually, explaining it to someone else is not really something I can do. If you can pick it up by watching me, that's one thing, but for me to try and remember all the steps to break it down, I'm likely to skip something important in there.
Yeah. No, I get you. Like, okay, not quite the same, but like when I go to game night, some people are so bad at explaining how to play games that someone hasn't played before. And I've learned from that experience and modified my own way of explaining how to play a game. Like they wouldn't say, here's the goal. Now here's how to achieve it. What they would say is, here's what you can do. And I'm not telling you why you want to do it. I'm like, well, that doesn't exactly help me now, does it? I'm like, okay, so I can move to this space. Why do I want to?
Yep.
You know, I can use that card that has this ability, but why do I use that ability? And then
yeah, what advantage does this give me to do that?
And when I would try to ask them, they would be like, just wait for it. And I'm like, but I'm so confused right now. I have nothing to hang all of this stuff you're talking about on. You know, it's coming at me in the wrong order. And trying to get people to change the way they explain these games has gotten people really pissed off at me. And I'm like, but I'm not retaining anything you say because I have no context. And it just, it's...
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I've run into that number of times. And I generally do 2 gaming conventions a year. And the main reason I go to those conventions is to, learn some new games, to, hopefully find some new ones that I can play with people I know.
Yeah. Well, now I've made sure that if I'm explaining a game to people, I start with the goal and then how to achieve it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a better way to do it is, lay out what the victory conditions are so people know what they're heading toward.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me to teach a game, I do have to just kind of, go through the rule book paragraph by paragraph to make sure I'm not skipping something.
I've been trying to figure out if there's a way to play some of the games I have online, but not really finding them. There's this great game that I've got called Are You a Robot? It costs $2. It has 4 cards, and it's one of the most fun games I have ever played. Because basically there's one card is the instructions, the other 3, 2 of them say you are a human, and 1 of them says you are a robot. Now you can play with 2 players as well, or you can play with 3. But the basic idea is you have to role play the role that you have and try to figure out who is the robot and who is the human. And the robot will assimilate the human if they can, whereas the humans can shoot the robot or the other human. And that's a way, if the humans shoot each other, the robot wins. If the robot assimilates the humans or one of the humans, then the robot wins. But if the humans shoot the robot or shake hands with each other, then they win. So it's all about learning how to trust someone. And after playing about 4 or 5 consecutive games of this, the sheer level of paranoia that we would get into was crazy. I wish I'd been recording the session so I could animate what people did. Because it would be a great animation when people are playing this game. It really would. And there's got to be a way to play this online. There's got to be a way to randomize who is what, and then play it in a live stream or something.
Well, it sounds like the game's simple enough mechanics that shouldn't be hard to do for an online setting.
But my only question is,
I'd have to see the whole rules for it to figure out.
Oh, I already told you all the rules. That's it. The only thing is that randomizing who gets which card online would be not that easy without somebody knowing what their role is. Or what other people's roles are, I mean. So I would love to find a way to play that and record it. And
okay, Dave's saying there's a Quiplash version of it.
There is? There's a... Really? Oh, I'm going to have to look for that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've got to figure out how to set up to play Quiplash and games like that in the live streams. Although I'm not sure if that's something I can do through StreamYard or if it only runs under an OBS system.
I'm seeing the card game online, but I don't see an online version of it. I hope you can link me to it.
Yeah, Dave, can you drop a link for that game?
Because
Okay, he's saying he'll message you.
okay, well, if it, I assume that if you go to Jackbox, there's a way to find it. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, he's saying it's probably called something different, and that's the Jackbox games. A lot of them, seem to be versions of other games that they've just made enough changes to not get a copyright infringement.
Hmm. Yeah, but it really is a very fun game to play, especially if you get some people like that. There was this one guy who was playing with us who got so into it. Like if someone said, "You're the robot," and he'd flip out, like, What? It's not me, I swear. And it was like, it was so much fun.
Yeah, I've got a game, that's kind of similar as far as the hidden identity things. It's a card game based on the Rick and Morty episode Total Recall.
I wouldn't know. I could not get past the first episode of that show.
Yeah. Well, you don't even have to watch the show, to get the game. You can pick it up fairly easy. But the premise of it is that there are these telepathic parasites that implant memories into your brain so that you believe they've been friends for a long time. So it's trying to figure out who are the real people and who are the parasites, so you can eliminate all the parasites.
And it looks like this game is only available in a party pack. You have to buy like a bunch of other games to get it.
That's generally the way Jackbox does it, although the party packs can be really cheap. Back around January, they did a sale and I picked up a party pack that's like 6 games and I only paid like $8 for it.
Well, I managed to get Quiplash all by itself. So
yeah, well, you should see what party packs it's in. It might not cost that much to buy the pack.
Well, it's $20 on the Jackbox site, but do I even want the other games?
Well, that was the pack I picked up. It was Quiplash was the only one in there that I even knew. But I figured for that price, less than $10, it was worth it even for just the one game.
It occurs to me, I have a game engine that lets you make your own games where the programming is all drag and drop. I could make this game so simply with that. Like the hardest part would be the graphics. I should totally do it.
Well, and you could put it together and, contact whoever published the card game.
Or I could just make changes.
Yeah, but, if you could get it under that name, it would probably sell better, and, getting a percentage of it there could wind up being...
I mean, I'm not even talking necessarily about selling it. I just, start up a live stream, get a bunch of people to download it from me, and we just play it online.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that this game engine has a way to connect with other people online. I may be wrong about that.
Yeah, well, it certainly would be something worth doing either way, because, you need some play testing of it regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. But that would be, oh, hey, there's a link in the chat. All right. I will paste and go. Okay. Let's see. I'm seeing a lot of party packs so far. I don't see just that game though. I just see party packs. Yeah.
Okay, well, Dave, I'd be up to doing some play testing with you as long as I don't have to have OBS running myself, because there's something broken with my channel that it won't work with an OBS.
I mean, when I just want one game and I'm forced to buy a bunch of them for way more than that one game's worth. No.
Yeah, it's all a matter of the price point.
I mean, well, for all I know, those other games are a lot of fun. Maybe I should look anyway.
Yeah, I generally hate buying a game I haven't played because I've, had enough instances where something that looked interesting, but it's like once you get out of the box, either it just didn't seem like as much fun, or sometimes there were just like flaws in the rules that after 3 games you pretty much knew what was the winning strategy or winning character, and wasn't any point in playing it after that.
And it looks like the ideas I have are too derivative. I mean, because it looks like push the button uses aliens instead of robots, which is like totally what I would have done.
So there's already something pretty close there, huh?
Yeah. Which I guess means I just couldn't. Well, wait a minute. No, it looks like there's some sort of drawing part of this where it's like, how does this help you find the aliens? Simple, take the drawing test. Humans would receive the prompt, draw a couple in love, while aliens would receive the prompt, draw an elderly couple. As a result, the drawings will be close but not the same, and it raises suspicion. Yeah, that's not the way I would have done it. I would have done something a little bit closer to you have to role play it and then decide who to trust. Which, I mean, is a lot closer to Are You a Robot than it is to this push the button game.
Yeah.
Well, some point, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe you could get into contact Osment and see if you could play it with him. See what you think of it there, and if it's worth the money.
Yeah. But I mean, also, I don't enjoy the games where they tell you to draw this, that, or the other thing, just because usually that's better done with, say, like a mobile device, and someone playing on a PC and trying to draw with a trackball mouse, forget about it.
Yeah, well, I can't draw anything recognizable anyway.
I'm actually not a bad hand-drawn artist. The problem is that, I'm not drawing it by hand now, am I?
Yeah, he's saying there are a lot of other tasks. That's just one example of it. I seem to basically have a problem with just working on anything that's two-dimensional. I don't work well with flat drawings. I need to build models.
I'm terrible at drawing perspective. But like at board game night, there are a lot of times where like we'll play these games that either you use paper or a little like dry erase board or whatever, and you it's like they give you like that little phrase, draw a mouse on skis or whatever, and like I'll draw it, and it's pretty rare for people to not know what I did. But then part of it is Like you pass the little dry erase pad to someone, and they flip it over to a new page and write down whatever it is you drew. And then the next person has to draw that based on the phrase. And sometimes their drawing will be absolutely wretched. So it's like, like I did well, but everyone else got it freaking wrong.
Yeah.
Ah, well.
Yeah, I can't do any kind of drawing game just because people can't really figure out what it is I tried to draw.
Oh man, I just saw an article where Mel Gibson, of all people, is saying the only reason liberals hate Trump is they hate God. Oh,
yeah, coming from him, that's not too surprising, but it is sickening.
Yeah.
And I don't get the level of disconnect that has to be required to see Trump as being a godly person.
I know, right?
It's like for all the virtues that Christianity is supposed to support, how do you see any of those in him?
I don't know. I guess people just like him so much that they assume. That's the only thing I can think of, because what else is there?
Yeah, I really, it's completely outside of my comprehension because I don't even see anything about him that's likable. I mean, the most charitable perception I could get of him is as a slimy used car salesman.
Well, I mean, okay, I've advocated people watching a video series called the Alt-Right Playbook, which is basically like, it describes the mindset of right-wingers, like extreme right-wingers. And one of the things is that they absolutely love their bullies. Like they look at someone who's a bully like Trump and they go, I want to be like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's what they aspire to be.
Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's crazy. Like, I would never, ever want to be even slightly like Trump if I could help it,
Yeah.
But apparently there's people out there who just, they look and they go, ooh, a position of dominance over other people. I want to be that. But I mean, and like, I can understand wanting to be like one of the top dogs, but can't you manage that without being an asshole, without being cruel? I mean, the best leaders are the ones with compassion.
Yeah, for the long run. But there is a lot of that in our society that, being sold on conquest in that. That's the way we judge somebody's success.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know.
Unfortunately, the kind of predatory capitalism that the U.S. system is based on, so much of it's, how many people did you crush to get there?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, I can understand in a way, the sort of flag waving, we're number one thing. I'm not saying that I want to be anything like that, but I guess I can understand it to a certain degree, to a certain extent.
I don't know. Maybe it's just that my whole life I've been the nerd that got picked on. So I don't even see the appeal of why you would want to be like that, just because I've detested the people who were like that all my life.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like one of the things in the right-wing playbook was that people think that there is a pecking order, that there are sharks and there are minnows. And if you're not a shark, what you want to make sure is that you're not one of the lesser minnows. You know, is like you want to serve the sharks, because if you don't, you're like one of the downtrodden who get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so I get how some of it is probably based on fear, but I'm also convinced that like some of the people think, hey, I could be a shark someday. You know, if I just work hard enough, I
Yeah.
can be one of the elite. And it's like, well, you pretty much can't. You're never going to be that.
Yeah, but again, that's kind of the whole thing that's, sold under the title of the American dream, that it's just a matter of if you work harder and you work longer, that you're going to be able to get wherever you want to be. And it's like, no, it takes a certain amount of opportunity. And if you're starting off on the lowest rung and you don't have any kind of connections with anyone, you may never get an opportunity to get very far.
Yeah. I don't know. It's frustrating looking at an alternate mindset like that and seeing its flaws, but not being able to convince people that there are flaws.
Yeah. Well, and again, if people were just brought up as children with that mindset, it's very difficult to convince them that there's an alternative, that not everyone thinks that way.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even necessarily want to convince them that people don't think that way. I would rather show them, well, thinking that way does not help you accomplish your goals. You know, like if like ask them, what do you want? And then show them you won't get it with the system that you're advocating. You will never get there.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, for me, a lot more preferable, or at least a lot more doable, than trying to convince them to adopt whatever system I've adopted. But of course, I don't think that would ever work on them, because a lot of them are religious fundamentalist types, and a lot of what happens there is you'll give them reasons why their religion is wrong, and they'll insist that you tell them what is right. And they won't accept I don't know for an answer. They won't accept the idea that an alternate, like without an alternate set of definitive answers, they will not abandon what they already believe. Like they can't go to a position of I don't know. They need their answers. And if you can't provide answers, they think better a wrong answer than no answer at all.
Yeah, well, and I wasn't even trying to go as far as to getting them to accept my system. I would just like to get them as far as the realization that there are other valid ways that it could work. Not even trying to convince them that theirs is wrong, but just trying to show them that there is more than one possibility.
See, I'm worried that won't help anything. Like I can show people that there's other possibilities. They might go, yeah, but those possibilities are like terrible or go against what I believe, and therefore they must be stopped. You know, it's like if you explain to people there are other sexualities than straight, they will say, yeah, but those are against God, so they still need to stop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like,
well, simply being against God would be something I would see as a reason to promote it, but
they wouldn't. So unfortunately,
I know.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it's one of the things I wonder about is like how my brother and I, same parents, raised in the same house, came out to be so completely different. You know, because on the religious scale, he's somewhere between fanatic and zealot.
Crazy. So here's a question then. Are you where you are because of or in spite of your parents? Is he there where he is because of or in spite of your parents?
Well, my parents were never really on either extreme.
Okay.
You know, so yeah, I don't really know how to answer that.
I mean, I've never really heard why Kirk Cameron went off the deep end, because it just sort of seemed to happen to him. It's not like I was dissatisfied with this, that, or the other thing, and religion gave me the answers. All I've ever heard is just he found religion and then went so extreme with it that, you know, well, he basically started misbehaving really badly. And I've never seen like what made him convinced that that was the right path to take.
Yeah, I had kind of wondered with him about what the intermediate steps there were, because it was just like one day I heard that he was ultra religious, and it's like, okay, how do you get there?
Yeah. I mean, I can't picture it. I know like some of the various ways he made himself a nuisance while he was still on growing pains, but I have no reason why. And I'd actually like to know.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I never paid that much attention to celebrities, but you know, he just does seem an interesting case.
Yeah. And I mean, why Ray Comfort? Why did he join with Ray Comfort of all people? I don't know. But I mean, like some of the stuff he did where he said, okay, you have to get rid of the girl playing my girlfriend because she was in Playboy kind of thing. Where he actually went up to like the head offices of whatever the hell the studio was and started bitching so hard that they basically like initially they caved and swapped out the girl, like gave him a different girlfriend. But then he made such a nuisance of himself that they told him to fuck off.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but a bunch of years ago when like Kirk and Ray were like starting to come to the cultural consciousness, a bunch of child stars made a video telling Kirk Cameron to knock it off.
I saw that video. I only saw it like 2 years ago, but yeah.
I loved that video. That was awesome, especially since I remember a lot of those child stars.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up watching a lot of those. Well, not so much grew up. They were all came a bit younger than me, but
although I have to say, some of those stars did not age well.
no, yeah, you see the then and now, and I think in general, yeah, that people who, you know, like made it big or were in a really popular show as kids, very few of them have come out of it well as adults.
Well, you remember that kid, whatever the hell his name was, Haley Joel Osment. That's the one who was in that M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong movie where like he sees dead people. Was it The Sixth Sense or whatever?
Sixth Sense, yeah.
never would have pictured him growing up looking the way he does now. Because he's got this big old bushy beard and he's a bit of a chubbo. And I'm like, this is not the kid we saw in that movie anymore.
I don't know if I've seen a picture of him as an adult, so. But, I get the concept.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm wondering if there is a... oh, Jesus, he's let his beard grow like to where he looks like a mountain man now.
Yeah, well, I get what you mean. I don't know if you ever, saw the old Partridge Family TV show. But it's like that's one of the things that I saw a lot growing up, and now I see, Danny Bonaducci today, and it's like, yeah, that doesn't really connect.
Well, I've never seen the Partridge Family, but the Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
Well, the kid who played Cousin Oliver is a Facebook friend of mine, and wow. He does not, he's yeah, you wouldn't recognize him. Anyway, here, that I put a link in the chat to what Haley Joel Osment looks like now, and wow. I'll put another one in there because it's actually probably easier to see.
Okay, yeah.
Him. But yeah, this is before he grew the mountain man beard. This one. Excuse me. Also, the kid who played Bastian in The Neverending Story, you want to talk mountain man beard. Holy shit. I mean, like, wow. He's a photographer now. He quit acting, but what? Tell me he's not dead. Like, I type in his name and it says death. And I'm like, he can't possibly be dead. No, he's not dead. That link was bullshit. Okay. But let me see if I can find a picture of this guy. Not what I wanted. There we go. That's good. Open images, new tab, copy, and paste. And I didn't even realize this. Dude's got dreads now, too. You would never recognize the guy. Like, ever.
No, yeah. That
So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely would not connect those.
I mean, it's funny when you kind of think about it. Like, I've heard these tragic, unfortunate stories where, like, the little girl wants to be a ballet dancer and she studies through her entire childhood, but then puberty hits and she's like 6 feet tall with a double D bust. And it's like, you can't be a ballet dancer like that. They won't let you. So, kind of unfortunate when that happens. And I guess it's the same thing with a lot of child stars where it's like, oh, you were the most adorable little child. And oh my gosh, look at you now.
Yeah. Well, and to some degree, I'm sure they get, caught with the typecasting thing that if they played a character in a really popular series, they can't get anyone to see them as anything else.
There is that, I'm sure. Although a couple of the guys who played like major characters in Harry Potter definitely broke out of that mold. I mean, I haven't seen, what is it, like Swiss Army Man or whatever, but I've heard about it. And boy, is that off type for the kid who played Harry Potter. But there's also a series, I forget if it's on Netflix, but it's called Sick Note that has Rupert Grint, who played Ron Weasley. And that's pretty off type for him too. So, I mean, I guess you can break out of the mold.
Yeah, it can be done. It takes an effort.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to wind this up here. We've been going close to 2.5 hours.
Okay, well, I got stuff I probably ought to be doing anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So did you have anything coming up you wanted to plug?
No. At the moment, I'm still trying to decide whether I should be making a video or just relaxing right now. So.
Okay. Well, and, thank you everybody in the side chat there. Just one more time, I'm going to drop this link that Jenny Morgan needs some help. She needs $413 to get her car fixed. And, where she's living, it really is a requirement to function.
Well, actually, while we're on the subject, I am starting a GoFundMe to purchase some weapons-grade plutonium to drop a bomb on my enemies, but, no obligation there.
I want to see the list of your enemies first to make sure that it's no one in my immediate vicinity.
Well, mostly it's William Shatner, but,
Okay, well, thanks everybody. We'll catch you all later.
Have fun.
If anybody's around tomorrow at midnight, I'll be running a stream then.
Rock and or roll.
Oh, and then in addition to that now, I've also become the co-host for Black Sofa, who is running his chat streams that start Fridays at 4 o'clock Central Time.
I've never heard of it. Where do you find that?
Black Sofa is the name of his channel.
Oh, it's the whole channel, not just the show. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I should pull up a link for that. Back. Get the right filters there. There we are. Yeah, because there are actually like several channels of very similar names there. So yeah, here's Black Sofa's channel. So yeah, he's in the UK, so when he's broadcasting, it's like 10 p.m. his time. But basically, this is just something that he started doing to, give people something to do while everybody's locked up inside. Just because people need the social contact and that. So, okay. Dave the robot. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.